impact on vaping, and we want to bring this to your attention because some of us may not be aware it's rampant right now. It's all over, and it's impacting our kids. So I just felt like it was really, I just felt like the time was right to have this conversation. So without further ado, we're going to get started, and Harper's going to talk to you about what our program is going to look like today.
Okay. So this is obviously the table of contents. So first we're going to have an introduction, and then Mr. Thomas is going to go over some stuff with like demographics and a bunch of stuff. And then we're going to have some paragraphs about the mental and physical dangers of vaping, as well as just some data on stuff about it. And then we're going to do the student and the teaching perspective. So that's going to mainly be like what I see and how I feel as a student, and how Mr. Thomas sees and feels as a teacher. And then we'll go over our sources and conclusions, and throughout it there will be some videos and some questions, and then that's mainly the whole rundown.
Awesome job. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to start off with a quick commercial. And I know we probably have seen some of these commercials, but I wanted to show you this one because I felt like this really drives home the point that we're trying to make today. So here we go.
I helped create a vape that makes depression convenient. What is this?
My new product, the depression stick. Nicotine can amplify depression and anxiety, so I'm trying to sell some depression. Anyways, sadness, stress, all those vape pens that you're carrying, I mean, they pretty much do the same thing as mine. I'm just being honest with my marketing.
What are you talking about?
You don't want to sell depression?
No, you gotta get out of here.
Your loss. I help.
So I wanted to share that video with you all because even though it's that 30-second clip, it really talks about selling depression. We gotta understand as parents, this is how it works. And you probably never noticed when you walked in, but there's a vape right in front of you. This little gadget right here. And this on the back side says Chill Red Apple. It has a very nice smell to it. It smells like candy. But this you can get out of the store right down the street. And I actually confiscated this a couple of weeks ago from one of our students in this very building. So they are marketing to our kids and they're making this stuff look cute. And this is really causes issues. And we're gonna get into that right now.
Introduction. Recently, I've come to my and Mr. Thomas' attention that vaping is becoming more and more normalized in middle schools. Vaping is the use of an electronic cigarette. Vapes are a huge problem because as they're becoming more and more normalized, more and more children have access to them before they even have a chance for their brains to develop, which is very crucial because it causes their brains to not fully develop certain tools that they would need in life. Vapes are mainly targeted to children by using bright colors, shapes, and flavors like blue raz, peach passion fruit, ice, watermelon bubblegum, and so much more. In fact, some vaping companies have added rainbow LED lights to them, like you can see here. For all of those parents who think, no, not my kid, in the USA, around 2,520,000 middle school and high school students vape. Vapes are made with an addictive chemical called nicotine, which brings us to our next topic.
So I want to do something real quick. Just to kind of bring this point home. So she gave a statistic that said 2.5 million people are vaping, kids are vaping, right? That's about 1 in every 10 kids. 1 in every 10. Now, out of that 1 in 10, we're going to do something really quick. We're going to start from this side. We're going to count to 4. We do this every day with our kids, so this should be pretty easy, right? All right, so you just count out 1 to 4. We're going to start back there with you.
1, 2,
3,
4,
1,
2, 3,
4,
1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 3, 2. So I was
1.
Sorry,
Just say 1.
1.
Perfect. All right, so if your number was 1, stand up. All right. That 1 and 4 That number represents, for those who are vaping, 1 in 4 are using e-cigarettes. The 85 is 85% of the kids who stay on nicotine. 85% of those kids who are using vapes are staying on this nicotine. It's an addiction. It's serious. Thank you.
Vaping causes many problems, mentally and physically. First off, vapes are marketed as stress, anxiety, and depression relievers, which is entirely untrue. The nicotine in the vape triggers dopamine. Dopamine creates a feeling of pleasure and relaxation. It can be found in plural parts of the organ system, including the brain, kidneys, and adrenal gland. While it may feel good at the moment, and a way to trigger your brain into forgetting stress, it doesn't work that way. Once the nicotine wears off, it creates withdrawals, which lead to stress, cravings, and anxiety. You hit the vape again, and the dopamine is triggered. Then the nicotine wears off, then you hit it again. And it creates an unhealthy cycle for the body and the mind. When you train your body to act a certain way, it's hard to go back. This is like a deadly virus, but if the virus is tickling you from the inside. So this is kind of part 2. Now let's get on with the physical stuff. The most common side effect people know of is cancer, lung cancer, oral cancer, and death. But in reality, vaping can do so much more. First off, nicotine is a hunger suppressant, which results in losing your appetite, and it can also contribute in weight loss, sleep insomnia, sleeping too much, impatience, headaches, dryness, sore throat and mouth, coughing, shortness of breath, hair loss, unnecessary bleeding, increases the chance of a heart attack, raises blood pressure, spikes adrenaline, and so much more. Did you know that USA used to be called a tobacco nation, since we are one of the countries who relies most on tobacco? As well as, according to the CDC, in 2022, nearly 1 in 9, 11.3% middle school and high school students reported current tobacco product use, including 13.5% of non-Hispanic American Indian or Alaska Native students, 16% who identified as lesbian, gay, or bisexual, 16.6% who identified as transgender, 18.3% who reported severe psychological distress, 12.5% with low family affluence, and 27.2% with low academic achievement. Now, keep in mind, this information just came out yesterday.
So when you hear that data, as a parent, I'm a parent first, that should really bring some caution to you. So thank you for sharing that information. So I also wanted to share a little bit of information about the adult data, because these young kids become young adults as well, and it kind of mirrors what she was saying earlier. We have more uses by men or males than women. The age group that we're looking at here shows that the younger the demographic, the higher the usage with our young adults. So you see 25.8% versus 65 and older, 4.7%. And then pretty much just like you said in our demographic data with race, we have Hispanic population at 11.5%, 16.9% for non-Hispanic white, 10% for non-Hispanic black, and 10.2% for non-Hispanic Asian. And then you also see the data in regards to near poor versus not poor. So we just felt like it was interesting data, because one of the things we wanted to make sure we do is really hone in on the comment that she stated earlier, no, not my child, when in fact, unfortunately, it may just be your child.
So this is kind of some visuals of what it does, like I said. So it not only does all the stuff I named, but all of this stuff too. Like it can increase your heart rate and chest pain, blood pressure, vomiting, nausea, pain. And then this also came out yesterday about over 3 million, yep, the number changed, U.S. youth reported using a commercial tobacco product in 2022. E-cigarettes are the most commonly used tobacco product, which that's going to be a lot of people. So this next visuals are kind of more gruesome and more showing black lungs and blood. As you see, these two right here, these are both teens from Georgia. And then this is just more of vapors and what they do to your lungs and your body and how it negatively influences that. So this is my student perspective. As a student student of BHMS, it's not uncommon to see vaping. From 4 feet in a stall to people sitting on the sinks. This has become much of a problem that a group of 8th graders are called the vape graders, replacing the word 8th with vape. I'm very fortunate to know the dangers and how much it will ruin your life, but sadly, not everyone knows it's harmful. They just think it's cool or fun, or they don't know the strong power and hold of addiction. One common thing that I see is, oh, I'll do it once, but that's not usually the case. A person I'm friends with has told me, I lost friends because I told them to quit vaping, which is truly devastating. I often see students in the restroom vaping. This is hard for me to write, but I saw someone coughing their lungs out and almost suffocating, but what do? They took a break from coughing to hit their vape like it was an inhaler. Addiction is truly scary.
So that's from a student's perspective. So there's always the teacher perspective, the principal's perspective, and I will tell you first and foremost, before all of that, I'm a parent. So I have a perspective the same as you do as well. And it's kind of hurtful for me because vaping, first of all, is one of those things that's really difficult for me to catch. You know, if a kid brings marijuana, other type of inappropriate items, those are a little bit easier to catch, but vaping is not. So we rely on kids sometimes to be that person to kind of say, hey, you may want to go to the 1200 hallway, whatever the case may be. But the biggest resource for solving this problem is going to be parents. I'm trying to educate you guys on how to really dig in and help us out because we need you all to help us with this particular problem. So when you start looking at it from my perspective, some of the things that we see, and this is data that's out there, but just anecdotal, I can tell you that students who are vaping, the ones that I've had to deal with, they're having attendance issues, disciplinary issues as well. Sometimes we find that they are high anxiety students. We see some of those students have depression. So all of the data that she presented is hard factual data that I've seen with my own 2 eyes in this very building. So it's extremely important that we, as parents, a collective group, come up with ways to solve this problem. So one of the things we wanted to do is be solution oriented, and I know Dr. Ratcliffe, he's going to share some things with you in just a few moments. I also have Officer Jameson, he's our SRO, he's on site here every day, and he's going to introduce himself in just a few moments as well. But I wanted to show a quick video, another quick video that might help you guys out. Because one of the things I know, my daughters are 20 and 16. And for some reason, I begged God for boys, and I got 2 girls. So I don't know what I did wrong in my other life. But the point I'm saying is that it gets harder sometimes to have conversations with your kids sometimes as they get older. They become more independent, they want to talk more to their friends. But we have to find ways to engage our kids. One of the best things I used to do with my daughter is carpool and just listen to what's going on in the background. We drive 30 minutes to soccer practice, jump in the car. After soccer practice, let's go get something to eat, bring all your friends. And I would just listen. And then after that, I'll have some conversations. But here's another way, because as we know nowadays, kids are into technology, and TikTok is the new wave, right? Well, it's not even new anymore. But here's a commercial I found that might be helpful for you guys in regards to having a talk.
Thousands of kids start vaping, and I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how's sketches, mate? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You didn't turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, backpack kid? Let's do it. First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trendy, honey.
Come on.
Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vape.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Every day, thousands of...
All right, so we're not asking you guys to join TikTok. But what we're saying is that you have to be innovative when it comes to digging in and communicating with your kids. And at this point, with this being such a rapid thing, I say do anything you need to do to get engaged with that conversation. So, at this point, we are at sources. So Harper, back to you.
from Truth, which I highly recommend checking out. They have really good data, really good information on vaping and how it negatively impacts you. Actually, the first commercial was from Truth. And then my brain, and then Mr. Thomas's personal experience. And then I found some from Wikipedia, and I don't necessarily think that you should rely on Wikipedia as your first source, but I think it's always good to go back and check, especially when it's talking about a topic as serious as this. And then CDC, I also highly recommend CDC, not just for stuff about vaping, but just in general, public health and different diseases. And then overall, we hope this presentation has helped you further understand the dangers of vaping. We hope that you take consideration of this information and use it wisely. We wish you luck, and thanks for listening to our presentation on the mental, physical, and our points of view about vaping. Any questions?
Yes. And we will take questions from online as well. Yes.
I have a couple. So what are some of the signs or signals of it? I mean, coughing, but like, is there something I can pick up on if my kids are doing this?
Well, like we said, there's a lot of like mental stuff. So I think like anxiety and depression, and I think kind of a bad mood overall, especially when you're starting to crave it. Or I know that we're in teenage years, and like being secretive is something that a lot of people do. But I just highly recommend to check up on it, like not like invade their privacy, but
You'll start to see kids become more withdrawn. And it could be vaping, it could be something else, but anytime you start to see your kids pull back, there's something going on there. And it may not necessarily be vaping, but it's something for you to engage in and see what's going on. We're gonna have a conversation down the road with that. We talk about anxiety, right? And I know one of the things I encourage parents to do with anxiety, one of the things I saw from my years is when you start seeing kids in 100-degree weather wearing sweatshirts and heavy clothing. Oftentimes that's a sign that they're cutting and doing other things too. So you just kind of have to look for anything that's out of the norm. Kids are creatures of habit, right? If you pay attention enough, they pretty much have the same routine. And when that routine breaks, that's when you really you need to start questioning things. Questions? Any more questions?
I just have another question about it
Absolutely.
too. Is it more expensive or cheaper than cigarettes? And is it more concentrated?
You know the answer, sir? I don't necessarily buy
the
it.
cigarettes are approximately $6 or so a pack, and I think the vape cartridges are considerably more expensive. What do they do?
plus vaping not just uses nicotine, but also like flavors and other chemicals. And since it has such a hold on the youth, a lot of people do it. So I think over time it becomes more expensive because it's one vape, then they finish it in a day, and then another vape, another vape, another vape, and it's just a cycle.
The cartridges are a little bit more expensive. They are significantly more concentrated. But the real problem is that they taste really good, unlike cigarettes. So people don't know, kids sometimes don't know that there's nicotine in it.
Right.
But even if they do, they don't care because it tastes so good.
But is it cartridge like a whole pack of cigarettes?
It's you mean like in terms of cost? Oh, is the cartridge? Oh, what's the
Well, the cost and the
yeah.
concentration. I don't know anything about it.
I'm trying to remember. I'll get back to you on that. But one hit is not the same as one cigarette, but like Harper was saying, the more that they
Do it the
hit
more
it,
they
the
want
more
to
they
do it.
want
It's
it.
a cycle.
Yeah.
And then also I think something that's important with vapes is there's different kinds. There's like disposables, different flavors, different shapes. There's like, I know there's something called like elf bars, and then there's also something called Juuls, which the vape itself isn't disposable, but the cartridges, the pods are disposable.
Yeah. What's so hard about it is that they look like regular things. They look like USBs.
Actually, some people have been taking it upon themselves to do disguise vapes, or like put it in like a sweatshirt hoodie or like a backpack with like vape things. And then something that I saw the other day, I was going through TikTok and I saw someone making these vape bundles where basically they took a bunch of eyelash, like lip gloss, scrunchies, and they made it all cutesy so like the parents would think it's toiletries and they don't ask for your idea, but they would hide a vape in there.
online too. Let me get one of these first. I think, fooling myself. All right, let's see here. I thought I saw a couple of questions. So there was a question here that asked, what happens if a kid gets caught vaping? Are parents immediately notified? And I think some of you guys went to see what this one looks like, so there it is. So if a kid gets caught vaping in school, we as administrators follow the code of conduct, and depending on what it says as far as that action, we give the appropriate consequence, and then we always contact parents, and depending on some of the circumstances around that, it may be a situation where we gotta call the counselor in, perhaps to dig a little bit deeper to see if there's anything else going on. So it's usually a 3-step process. We do the investigation, issue out a consequence, we call the parent, and then depending on the circumstances around that, we'll include our counseling staff.
And then it's also a little challenging because how we stated before about how addiction is a big issue. Even if like we were to follow the code of conduct and take it and consequence stuff, they would most likely still buy another one because of that whole addiction has on them, which is why we're asking it's important that you guys take action and help prevent it, because while we're doing the best we can, we can't do it.
Okay, so I know this is like a really sticky issue, but obviously they're in the bathrooms. This is where my kids tell me that it's happening. And I know that you can't go into the bathrooms because of privacy issues. But what is, I know that this is probably like the big thing that y'all are trying to work on, but what is the solution to that if that's their safe space to?
Yeah, so there are things that we try to do. So we do have a dog that comes in and sniffs. He is not sniffing people. We don't do that, but he'll sniff areas, lockers, and things like that. Little cute dog, not the one that you see at the airport, the big huge thing. You know, he can come in, and he's good though. He sniffed out some Midol one day in a locker. So he's really good at what he does, and that's more of a deterrent, to be honest with you. There are some privacy things that prevents us from being in the restrooms when kids are in there at the same time. So really, we rely a lot on kids. And like I said, even with the one I just showed you, I got that from a source. And that's gonna be my biggest support, is getting relationships with my students so they feel comfortable enough to let me know that something is not right. The same way Harper felt comfortable enough emailing me saying, hey, I wanna talk to you about something.
I think, yeah, it's important to have kids to be able to rely on and tell people, because a lot of people, like, if you tell, people will call you snitches, but this case is not a snitch, this is a report, because their life is in danger and they're going against the code of conduct. So it's really important that students, like, feel confident enough to do, and I'm gonna take a guess on, like, how someone would say, and then you guys can just kind of stay outside the bathroom until they come out and question them.
We have our ways. And one question I saw from Ms. Yancey was, are athletic coaches educated about vaping? That is something we need to put on our agenda or to-do list, particularly from 6th all the way to 12th grade, because we know it's not just a middle school concern. So thank you, Ms. Yancey, for posing that question. I'll make sure we do that. Now there is a second part. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about the chicken and egg relationship between the anxiety and depression and vaping. And first of all, Harper, you did an amazing job. Very courageous and articulate. It was fantastic. So I'm curious from a counseling standpoint and a kind of psychological health standpoint. Thank you. I'm curious, like, what is the right methodology there in terms of a proactive intervention standpoint? Like, if there is a recognition of certain children that are expressing anxiety and depression, like addressing that proactively before it becomes, you know, they're leaning on some kind of substance or something like that. And maybe you already do that, but I'm just wondering if there's a way to, before they start to vape, maybe the anxiety is driving them to vaping, and then it becomes a terrible cycle.
Yeah, that's something we see a lot. So like you said, most of the groups like that vape, like Hispanic or people with bad grades, a lot of people do it to run away from their problems, or like people mostly
louder so that they can hear you online.
So we do lessons in the classroom on managing anxiety as a whole for all the students. We haven't done it yet, but we do have it on the schedule for just ways to cope with anxiety. That would kind of be that tier 1 support for all students that we do that. And then we do meet in small groups and individually with students who are struggling with anxiety. But I love the idea also, we just talked about that it would be a great lesson to do in the classroom, which we haven't done, but about vaping as well and the dangers of vaping so that the students are aware.
So that's a great segue, because we have a second part to this discussion that's going to be led by our social worker, Dr. Ratcliffe. So if you come on up, sir.
Can I ask something real quick?
Yes.
So one thing I've noticed a lot is that the counselors are often talking about how to deal with anxiety, but I'm not actually certain the kids could identify their own anxiety. Really, I mean, you're talking about being very self-aware, really accepting your feelings for what's there. And do y'all start there? I feel like a lot of it's just about how to cope with it, and not like, holy crap, I have anxiety. It's sometimes it's a little lower than that. Sometimes it's like, wow, my stomach isn't right today. What's going on with me?
Yeah, we definitely get into body awareness and like the sensations of anxiety and worry, what that is. And that's the first step, is recognizing that, and then being able to label it.
Awesome. Okay. I want to say this. I'm Dr. Ratcliffe. I'm the school social worker here for City Schools of Decatur. I have a lot of roles, but I'm also the lead social worker for the district as well. We have 4 social workers in our district, including myself. But I want to say this, as a parent, nothing makes me more joyful than to see my child come into their own, father of 3 boys. Nothing brings me more joy than to see my kids come into their own. And then as a parent who happens to work in the school system, nothing brings me more joy than to see another child come into their own. Harper, that was a great job. Really good job. And one other thing, I don't think you all noticed, Harper was moving over here every now and then and letting people in on the chat room without being prompted. That kind of stuff excites me, because to see that in a child is like a self-initiator, a starter. And I was like, wow, I need that for my boys. Boys are different. Pray for me. But no, there's a lot I wanted to talk about. Probably have to back up. And I'm gonna fly through it a little bit, because I really want to get you guys an idea of what social workers do. Back up. I think we're at the end. Somehow we're at the end. Okay. And so, just to give you an idea about school social workers and what school social work does, please do the next one. Basically, we are trying to figure out how to help the student, because we know that if a student comes to school and is broken, either in the mind or in the body, if something is not right, it's going to be very difficult for them to learn. And so what our intent is to try to figure out how to remove those barriers or those issues. And so the way that school social work is that we try to focus on the child, but we focus on the child by making a connection with the home, the school, and the community, and for the whole purpose of ensuring that the student is successful in school. And I heard earlier there was some conversations about, how do we know if there's something different going on with our child and things of that nature. For social workers, one of the gateways for us to kind of get an idea that we need to kind of delve into what's going on with the student is we look at the ABCs, and that's basically attendance, behavior, and course failures. So if we see that there's something going on with the child's attendance, whether they're not coming to school, or whether they're coming to school and not going to certain classes, or showing up late to certain classes, that kind of lets us know, okay, we need to kind of intervene and make a connection here. We start seeing their behaviors, whether it's, being angry or being isolating, having withdrawal, or, you know, any other number of behavior, anger issues, then that raises a level of concern. And then if we see course failures or decrease in grades where kids making all B's, now all of a sudden the A's is now making C's and D's, and, you know, we look at that data. That data helps us to kind of identify. And what social workers do is we make those connections by working with all the people within the school system, our counselors, our psychologists, mental health staff. We kind of work with all of them together to kind of say, look, we are noticing something and we want to help provide some support. The benefit of social workers outside of those persons in the school building is that we have the ability to go outside the school building. You can click to the next one. So in working with the home, you may see us as social workers, we may come out and do home visits. That's to kind of have conversations with parents and have discussions about what may be going on, specifically if it's around attendance or those things. We like to offer brief solution-focused counseling, and usually that's around resources and referrals. If we notice that there's some things going on with students or something happens with disciplinary-wise and there's an issue, let's stick with the vaping topic that we're talking about. If we find that there's some issues with that, then we're going to work with the family to look to see, well, what kind of outside resources are you connected to, or how can we help you get connected to those resources, counseling resources. And then we'll look even internally. There are things that are happening within the school, within city schools of Decatur, that address the vaping issues, the anxiety, the depression, which I'll talk a little bit about more in a minute. We also get involved with crisis intervention because we have situations where students, unfortunately, are at a crisis. They really wanted to hurt themselves, or maybe want to harm someone else. Social work is right in the forefront of addressing those issues, meeting with the students, meeting with the staff, making plans to address those students and to help them to feel safe or be safe in school. Go back to school. So there was a question earlier about, you know, what happens if a kid was caught with vaping. And of course, there's a disciplinary consequence to that. But what we do know is that, according to the data, we can give them a disciplinary consequence, suspend them. So now they just got more time at home to smoke, and then they can come back and smoke some more because nothing's been done. So what you'll see with social workers, a lot of what we do is on the back end. We help with policies and practices here in the district. One of the things that we have been a big part of is creating restorative practices. You can even look within the code of conduct. There's some leeway if a student is caught with an illegal substance or drug, that one of the things that can happen is a referral for mental health counseling and support within the school system. Here at Beacon Hill, we actually have a licensed professional addictions counselor on staff who provides support for students who may have been caught with substances or drugs and things of that nature. And we utilize this. Fanta High is our counselor here. So if that happens, there is support for that we can, you know, help get the support within the school building. Other things that we do within the school, of course, engage the parent. I talked about that earlier. The Student Center. The Student Center is another area where mental health counselors kind of come into our student centers on the back end of this building, but there are staff that come in to provide mental health support, as well as interns from, is it Georgia State? Georgia State, that come in and provide mental health counseling as well as substance abuse counseling. So there's a lot of things that are happening within the school. So we try to connect the dots with the school, the home, and then the last part is with the community. Social workers collaborate a lot with, you know, the DeKalb Community Service Board in terms of providing some mental health support. We refer out to them. Pathways works closely with our school district in coordinating mental health support and counseling support. DeKalb Juvenile Court actually has a lot of different programs, even within their website, that address a lot of issues that students and teens may have, specifically on substance abuse as well. So sticking with Harper's topic, you know, how can parents be supportive? This is kind of social work in motion. We try to think about how we could be helpful, offering some advice, but the big thing is maintaining dialogue as parents. I like the commercial piece about doing the little TikTok and then backing down and softly bringing in the conversations. A lot of times it's about just trying to relate to our children and figure out what it is that they're into. And then when we do some of those things, as much as it's probably drudgery for us to do, it opens the door for conversations to happen. Think more, than just cigarettes and get educated that, nicotine exists in all these things, not just cigarettes, helping educate our kids about that. Prepare for peer pressure. That should be an ongoing conversation. I know I've got a recent middle schooler, and that's an ongoing conversation for us. It's just always, we're always talking about, what happens if somebody asks you to do this? What happens? Somehow I interjected almost every day into the conversation. So always kind of prepare them for that. And set good examples. I mean, if I smoke, you're probably gonna smoke. So try to set good examples. And if you do smoke, try not to smoke in the house. Try to keep it away from the kids. Sometimes we do things as adults that we need to keep as adults stuff. So, try to be a good example and establish a smoke-free home. Next one. So, this is a link into a lot of different resources. Harvard talked about thetruth.com, which is a good piece of getting information about vaping. One thing that we do as social workers too is to look for resources to bring into the community. This may be a piece that we could introduce in some form or fashion, because vaping, Know the Truth, is a curriculum on vaping that can be used in the classroom or in guidance lessons. But this is something that maybe we will figure out how to utilize within our district as well. But the main piece I wanted to tap on, if you could tap this one there, is Decatur High School has a speaker series that's coming up real soon. And it's in conjunction with the Decatur Parent Network. It's on November 17th. And it is a live event. It's going to be at the Student Center at Decatur High School, and it's going to talk about substance misuse, and give parents resources about that as well. Please spread the word about that. If you scroll up, I think Ms. Hyde might be, her picture may be on here. Yeah, this is Ms. Hyde. This is our counselor, substance abuse counselor here in the district. She's here at Decatur High School and at Beacon Hill Middle School. Of course, Dr. Jones, Ms. Stern will be a part of that panel for this series. But it'll be a good one to go to get more information about vaping and other drugs that are going on in Decatur High School, or in city schools in Decatur. Go back to that. And go back one more. So just to give a visual, these are the 4 social workers for the district. Mr. Howarth works with Decatur High School and also with the Virtual Academy. Myself, I'm here at the middle school. Ms. Jefferson works with Winona Park, Fade, Glenwood, and Oakhurst. And then Ms. Bobby actually works with Claremont, Talley Street, ECLC, and Westchester. So just to give an idea about who we are and what we do. And
awesome. Thank you, sir. Questions? Oh, here we go.
Do you guys do anything? I know peer pressure is so huge with kids, and if they hear it from an adult, they might just tune it out. And the adults know. Is there anything where, like, maybe the high school in similar peer groups, so like members from the football team come over and talk to members from the football team? I don't know if you're in the football team. About some of these issues, so there's a connection. It's not like the Say No to Drugs Club coming and talking to a group. It's peers that they can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a great question.
Right.
I literally had a conversation with Mrs. Hyde, I want to say on Monday, and I was talking to her about doing a similar program, but more expanded. So we'll have, for example, a 9th grader that's working with 6th graders. So by the time the kid becomes a 9th grader, there's a 12th grader that they know that's still at the high school. So we're trying to figure out a process to make that work so every kid has someone they can connect to that's 3 years above them. So So when they become freshmen, they still had that connection.
Yeah, I love that.
I guess if you do find something at home, like, what is, like, the next steps other than talking to our kids, like,
Say if we do,
if, like, we were to, like, find something at home in our kid's makeup bag, or, you know, pencil case, or whatever, like, do you have recommendations on, like, what we do after that?
I would say this as a parent, the first thing I would think about is not to panic. If you find something, to not kind of panic, to take a minute to think. This is a child who's capable of making mistakes, right? And then try to figure out, once you discover it, is to have that conversation about what is this about? And do we need to ask for, do we need more help? Because if you're noticing, if you find it, then it's probably gonna make you start thinking back a little bit. Wait a second, I've noticed some of the ABCs. I've noticed some of the attendance issues. I've noticed some of the behavior issues. I've noticed some of the grades. So I might be seeing here, this is a nice time for an intervention. And I would say you certainly can always reach out to your school counselor, or school social worker. Maybe we can process some things and think about what referrals may be best. It may be in-house. We may be able to provide some services in-house, and if not, we can certainly lead you in the direction of where to find some things outside.
May I add something just really quickly? I'm Harper's mom, but Harper did this completely by herself, but doesn't matter, I used to do this myself, differently, not from the student perspective. But you have to remember, this is a physical addiction also, so I would encourage anybody to talk to their pediatricians about, nicotine replacement therapy is not usually recommended for children, but if this is a real addiction, then you might need to talk to them about that. They're trained, they have information, but don't forget, there's the mental health part of things, and there's the physical health part of things. If you're addicted and it's taken away from you cold turkey, it's gonna be a lot harder for you to succeed, so.
Yeah, I think I was in that spot. I think I would first talk clear it away and like find any other ones to clear away. And then I think it's also good to not panic. Like you said, because your child's still like a child, might still be angry at them. Panicking, I mean, I don't know. Since like you said, addiction mentally and physical, they're probably right now like, oh my god, oh my god. So I think what my mom said, kind of get on a call with like your pediatrician or like your therapist or like maybe make one and like monitor them a lot more than you usually would. Definitely, I think would be the best.
Just, I don't know if there's a solution to this, but Harper, not all of our children are as brave as you. Speaking of, is there a way, any advice on how we can empower our kids to like speak up if they see something instead of just running away? I know my 6th grader was like, there's no way I would ever talk to anybody about that. Like, so that our kids don't feel like snitches if they do see something.
I think definitely first off educating them on the topic and how much it would affect like their friends that saw them doing it and how much it would affect people, and yeah, just like kind of remind them how bad it is and like what it kind of does to you. And then also I think that definitely go back over reporting and snitching. And then I think definitely saying to them words of encouragement, like, you're amazing, you got this, is definitely pretty good.
I absolutely hate the S word, right? And like you said, as far as empowering your kids, one of the practices that I've used with my own kids was like helping them to understand that it's about your impact on other people too. And if you don't participate or you don't say something, indirectly, you still are somewhat responsible. So I try to encourage my kids, almost guilt them into being a spokesperson for others. And it works. It works. And certain things work differently for certain kids, but I find that just kind of giving them that power by saying, hey, your principal needs you, to make these things go away. And I really do allow my kids, probably more so than you guys could ever imagine. They are the ears for me to let me know, the ears and the eyes for me to let me know what's going on. So empowering them in that way, saying, hey, your principal is reaching out, he's trying to make this place better for everybody, but you can help him do that.
Or if it doesn't work, I think also maybe your child can tell a friend who is comfortable and confident doing it, so that way it still gets out, but they're not necessary.
Just a practical side to tell them is we don't go say, Harper told us you were, because kids think that you're gonna say that. So the name never comes up. It's not like we pull the kid and say, this child told us. It's obvious to us as adults that we wouldn't do that, but kids definitely need to hear like your name's not gonna come out.
And also, I think teaching them about what I said is like encouragement is better because they're gonna have to do it at some point in their life, whether it's tomorrow or in 15 years from now. They're gonna have to be confident and they're gonna have to say something and be brave at some point.
Yeah, I was thinking too, just the earlier comment about how sometimes kids don't even recognize signs of anxiety and so forth. And I think even the framing around, you know, hey, your friend may not understand what they're doing to themselves. And so your friendship and your demonstration of friendship is in helping, you know, deal with this problem because they oftentimes are turning to these things because they don't know, you know, they don't realize how much they're causing self-destruction. So that framing can be helpful as well to say, hey, you know, they may not even realize that they're destructing themselves, but you're being that friend and it's also great having the confidentiality as well, that they don't feel like they're gonna get, you know, found out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, any final questions? So 2 quick things before we depart. Again, I wanted to make sure to introduce you to Officer Jameson. He's with us every day. He helps to ensure the safety of our building, but he's also here just to kind of be that second lens for me and help me out as well. But he's really a great guy. That's fine. He's a nice guy. I didn't know if there were any questions specific to him, so I wanted to make sure that he was present as well. And lastly, in front of you, doing a plug for PTA. If you haven't joined PTA yet, take one of those documents, scan it, and join. We would love to have you become members of our PTA. All right, and we got to do it for class. But I want to give her another round of applause. And that goes to you all as well because every successful kid has a successful parent. Thank you guys. We'll post this on our website. We have it being recorded. Thank you so much, sir. And it'll get posted hopefully by this afternoon. And we'll also post your PowerPoint so you can reference the event that's going to be happening at Decatur High School as well. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome job.